We're talking with Scott Panza today. Scott has been in the financial service industry since 2009. He's earned a number of professional designations and awards. Outside of work, Scott also teaches finance at Sacred Heart University and volunteers with the St. Jude's Children's Hospital. Scott joins us today to talk about his journey within the industry and share some lessons he's learned along the way. I'm Paul Blanco, and this is Small Steps, Big Wins. All right, Scott Panza, I'm so happy to have you on Small Steps, Big Wins. Welcome today, and I'm excited to spend this time with you.
I'm excited to be here. I can't believe if you had asked me in the beginning of my career if I'd be sitting here doing this podcast with you. I don't know if I would have thought I would be, but here I am.
I probably would have agreed with you at that time. I probably would have said, I knew you had potential though. And, as we go through this, Scott is a great example of someone coming in with just a tremendous amount of focus. And that's how you ended up where you are. But let's start with the journey though. How did you get into this business?
I got into this business. Honestly, it goes back to being a kid and watching my parents just strive to make sure that myself and my sister had everything that we needed to be successful in life. And I watched them struggle with their own financial situation, which of course, as any parent would, they tried to hide as best they could, but that stress always shows through. And I was able to pick up on that. And as time went on and I just learned more about it, I started getting a lot more curious about money and just how it worked and how it was connected with everything. So when it came time when I was in college and they said, okay, Scott, pick a major, I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I was like, you know what? I want to learn more about money and really how it is really connected with everything. So I decided to go to finance. Well, that along with the movie Boiler Room. I remember watching it as a kid and thinking, wow, I would actually be pretty good at what they're doing, minus the whole illegal aspect of it and all. So then I picked finance, and that kind of led me down the journey that I'm on now, and thankfully stuck with it and found Barnum. Because at the end of the day, I went to a bunch of different interviews with a bunch of different financial institutions, and all of them met with me for 5 minutes and basically said, hey, we want to offer you a job. We want to pay for everything and you can start whenever you want. It's like, wait a minute. After I had thankfully met with Barnum first, where it was a group information session, met with Joe for like 7 different times for like an hour and a half, met my sales manager, Norm, and was thankful enough to end up getting brought in here and start my career here.
So that's interesting. So I probably knew that story, but never really thought it through. But what helped separate Barnum from everybody else was that they actually were interviewing you versus just giving you an opportunity.
They cared about who they were hiring.
Yeah.
That was abundantly clear compared to everyone else that I had met with, where it was literally sit with a manager for 5 minutes. Like that's clearly not a culture that I want to be a part of versus having gone through the experience here where it was abundantly clear that Barnum cared about who they were bringing in.
Yeah, and trying to make the best selection so that people could succeed in the business. So, well, you came in, you were like 22, 23 years old.
22, yeah.
22 years old. You come in, and how did you get started? And like, how is that like the mindset when you first get running? Like now you come into this business, you have your licenses, and now like it's time to start running a business.
Yeah.
Or start being an advisor, I should say.
Well, again, very grateful to be at Barnum because they gave me a nice path to follow. And at first it was definitely overwhelming sitting in my training course with 25 other people. Getting everything thrown at me was a lot. But between the trainings that we got even after that, I mean, I always like to tell the funny story of when the first call I ever made, I actually hung up on the person I called. I sat there and I was like, hey, this is Scott Panza from,
and then you hung up.
I didn't know if I should say Barnum or MetLife. And I didn't know if I'd get in trouble for saying the wrong thing. So it all started there. And it was Gail Goodman. I went and asked her, I was like, am I supposed to say Barnum or am I supposed to say MetLife? She just started laughing. So it started there, and then it was hard work. It was calling people nonstop. And the more I called people, everyone that sat around me saw that I just didn't care who I was calling. So they started feeding me more people, and they fed me more people. And I just kept calling and taking out whoever would go with me just so I can learn from them. Honestly, I didn't have the confidence to say anything on an appointment until about 6 months into the business, because I didn't know what I was doing or what I was saying. So I took all these people out, and at the end of the day, it was a blessing, because my process now has incorporated a lot of the things from all of the individuals that I ended up taking out. Mainly Norman Leslie, because he was my mentor and pretty much taught me everything I know. He gave me the sales skills and the confidence that I needed to be able to speak confidently to my clients and ensure that they felt comfortable with me helping them with their overall finances.
Yeah. And it's interesting knowing you now. I would have never have thought that it took you 6 months to actually do that, but it just because you wanted a deeper understanding because of who you are as a person, that you needed that.
For sure. And honestly, that was another thing that Norman instilled in me. He actually said it to me. I don't know if he remembers even saying it to me, but he told me at one point that I am the most important person in our client's life, with the exception of their family. I heard it. I never really understood it until I actually had to deliver my first death claim. And I ended up showing up at the house and telling this family that they were going to be perfectly fine because they took the advice and they followed the steps and they did everything that they needed to do. I legitimately handed them a financial plan, said, here's everything that you have. Here is your accountant's information. Here's your attorney's information. You're going to be fine. It was the wife and her brother-in-law and sister. And they looked at me like I had like 15 heads. Like, wait, who are you? How do you know we're going to be okay? Can you walk me through it? I ended up getting 2 more clients. I got the brother-in-law and the sister as clients because of that meeting. So it really rung true to me that I am that important person in these people's lives. And it was important to take it seriously.
Well, it's interesting that you say that. I tell a story because I started out a little different than you, where it was really only one side of the balance sheet, mostly on the protection side. And when you're 22 and all you're doing is talking about you need this much insurance because at someday, right? It made me mature really, really quick. I went from kid to an adult like overnight. Did that have, after Norman said that to you and now having this purpose, but did that help you to separate yourself from the pack of your friends in terms of your maturity level? Or were you still, struggling with that, being a 22-year-old kid?
So I would say it definitely made me realize, again, double down on the importance of it. At the end of the day, we're not only dealing with the protection side, but also managing people's entire life savings. And that is a massive responsibility. So I'm thankful that I had that work ethic and that just mindset instilled in me from an early age that you want to make sure that you're putting others in a better position than you're in. My grandparents have given more than any other people that I know. And they're also very fortunate. It's almost karma that more comes back to them, but yet they give more to them.
Yeah, those isms are true. The more you give, the more you get.
It really couldn't have been made much clearer to me because of my family and just the support system that I have had growing up. And between that and also, like I said, I couldn't have been paired with a better person than Norman. I had Norman with me when I was meeting with my grandparents, actually. And of course, I had to stay. I was 22, so I had to stay afterwards to have dinner at their house because my grandmother wouldn't let me leave until I had some dinner. But Norman had to leave and go be with his family. When he left, my grandfather, who was a successful businessman in his own right, said to me, do everything that he tells you to do and don't ever question it, because he knows what he's doing and he will put you on the right path towards success. Great. And I made sure to follow. I took my grandfather's advice very seriously always.
That's awesome. Well, so there comes a time in the business when you're young and you get started. And now, obviously, last year you broke into the top 1% of the industry, and that's really cool. But it took a journey to do that. I call it something that I say it clicked. And when did it click for you where you woke up one day and you said, you know what? I could do this thing. I'm going to have a great career and this is what I'm doing. And you never looked back. Did that happen to you? Did you have that click in your mind? Or was it just gradual?
Honestly, I still don't feel like I've made it.
Okay.
Because I'm not satisfied with where I am. I always want more growth. I've listened to a lot of very successful people here at Barnum and kind of seen how they have a very clear vision of not only today, but also the future. And that vision is what drives me, because I started to develop my own vision of the future and where I saw myself and eventual team getting to be as well. So really just wanting to make sure that I stick to that path has been exceedingly important.
Yeah. But was there a time like year 2 where you're like, all right, like I know, like where you were thinking long-term, not just, I got to make it?
Probably the first time that I teamed and then unteamed, because it, for a variety of reasons, just wasn't the right fit for me.
Yep.
And helped me get to a point to realize, it was a self-realization where I need that fear of, where's my next paycheck coming from?
It's great.
Where's the next piece of business coming from?
So you had the right build.
I needed that. I needed that. I got complacent with where I was because other people's business was helping drive my revenue, and I didn't. It didn't drive me. It didn't drive me, and I wanted more. So I needed to kind of experience that before I was able to.
It's great though.
To really, I guess, have it click. Where after I did that, I was able to really take that next step, take that jump after having been stalled for a little bit of time before that.
Cool. Well, that's really awesome. So was there a lot of obstacles when you first started, when you were going out there and, you're meeting with new clients? Obviously today is very different than then. It was all face to face, but
a lot of driving.
Was there a lot of obstacles? I know on one of our shows, one of the advisors talked about doing 40,000 miles in a year. And I had so many young advisors come up to me and said, I don't know if I could do that. It's so different today. I don't have to do that driving. But was there any challenges that you faced early on that, you look back and said, I was able to fight through this and it was helped me to grow? The
business as a whole, it's a hard business. It's a remarkably hard business. And honestly, one of the hardest things that I found in this business is almost helping to get clients out of their own way. Yep. And to realize that there is things that they can have help with, or they should get help with, to make sure that they're in the best financial position moving forward and that their family's protected, and really helping them to understand that is very difficult at times. That and on getting people to pick up the phone, that is getting harder and harder each and every day. And that's what we do. That's how we used to dial for dollars.
Yeah.
And still do, for that matter. So just getting people to pick up the phone, where's that next appointment coming from, used to be much harder as well, because we didn't have the great programs that we have now. We did to some extent, but not as many and as just abundant as they are today. So trying to find where is my next appointment coming from was also a huge challenge that I had in this business. Yeah,
which is another challenge that advisors have to figure out. And you did, obviously. So,
a lot of trial and error.
Yes. But let's shift to a little more to now. So, how has your mindset from that solo practitioner that you started out with, you had as you talked about, a start and stop on teaming, but now you're building a team, you have a team and it's growing and I think you're being extremely methodical how you've done it. How has your mindset shifted from that solo brand new advisor to today?
My mindset was almost forced to shift, just because I started not having time to do the basics, the important things of driving business and finding prospects to have new clients. So I was almost forced into that shift where I realized I needed help.
So so you had to scale your business.
I had to scale my business 100%. And I always think back to the slide I used to show it. It was in countless presentations where it was like, you start off as an employee, then you're a business owner, then you're an entrepreneur. Yep. And it takes a while to actually understand what those different levels actually are, which is why it takes time to get to those different levels. So I've always kind of gone back to that in my head and said, okay, where am I here? What do I need to do to take that next step, to become that CEO, to build the business and just become more successful for not only for myself, but also for the team that I am creating.
And how does, because that's a big change, right? You go from building, controlling everything. And now you start to relinquish some of that control, obviously for the better of your clients, your family, the team. But what does your day-to-day look like today compared to what it was before?
Different, but still the same. I mentioned earlier that I did have a little bit of a stall in growth, and it was because I got away from the basics, and I never want to get back to that point again where I'm stalling. So the day-to-day of doing the basics of calling and prospecting and just making sure that everything is taken care of, that part of it is still there. And I actually love that part. It's the challenging part of this business. And I love when people tell me I can't do something, because it just makes me, I know I'm going to do it the second I hear it. So I still do that. But there's a lot more delegation going on now than there was before, because I have the ability to do so. We actually talk of expansion. New assistant just started today.
Nice.
Actually, so thank you very much. We're very excited, and not only has it led to growth for myself, but also my team, as Kristen's taking the next step and becoming more of a practice manager than just my assistant.
Yep.
So that's pretty much.
But that's exciting, like seeing your smile when you talk about how you're impacting someone on your team, giving someone a new opportunity. That's why teaming is right for you as a person today versus maybe differently when you were younger. But I want you to stay on the basics for a minute. I think that, when you talk about those steps to success, right? It was, you're an entrepreneur. Like that means like, dude, just listen to us. Don't try to reinvent the wheel, right? Then you go to the business owner stage, and then you go to an entrepreneur, and then, a CEO. But if you think about it, it's a staircase. Mm-hmm. And all the stuff under each part of those requirements, you're not supposed to stop. So what you did in the entrepreneurial stage, if it was flat, you would say, okay, I'm done here. Now I'm here. But you have to stack those on top of each other. And when you said that, it resonated with me as you're talking about the slide, and then you're talking about managing the basics. So what are those, besides the calls, what else do you do that will never go away, that drives you on from a basic standpoint?
Understand that your clients are your livelihood, and make sure that they know that you appreciate them as well.
It's amazing.
And honestly, it was actually earlier this year, I send holiday baskets occasionally to some of my clients, and a newer client I sent the basket to, and he actually called me and said, thank you for doing that. That's was such a nice gesture. And I told him, I said, well, I appreciate everything that you've done for me and the trust you've put in me to help you with your financial situation and helping your family. He said, that's all I ever needed to hear. Thank you very much. And that felt good to me too, because it's just a affirmation that, okay, I am taking the right steps. They are realizing that I do care about them, and they are your livelihood, and you need to make sure that they understand that. So when you say something and that you say that you're going to do something, make sure you follow through with it, because they know the second you don't. If you make a promise, you stick to it.
Yeah, it's awesome. That's awesome. And by the way, that should be table stakes in our industry. Unfortunately, it's not. And by doing that, you actually separate yourself from the pack. So let's switch gears and talk about technology a little bit. So, 2020 was a tough year in March when COVID hit. And there was a lot of bad things that happened from that. And it really changed people's lives. It was pretty scary at the time that it happened, especially as a CEO sitting there saying, like, what do you do? What do you do next? Right. But one of the things it did for us was it brought some of the technology today that we use, like Zoom or Teams, or being able to reach clients all over the country and not have to fly or drive to go see them. Has that changed your business?
Absolutely. And thank you, by the way, for taking the steps even ahead of time for the technology platform, because it's funny. I used to only want to do face-to-face meetings. And now I have a face-to-face meeting and I'm like, wait, why did I say yes to driving for one meeting?
Yep.
And realizing how much time I'm spending, hour and a half there, hour and a half back. That's 3 hours that I could have been doing a lot of other things, talking to other people, helping more clients, helping more just families in general. So the technology side of it has been hugely helpful, so much more efficient with our time, and actually talk to that many more people, which at the end of the day, that's what we're here to do, is to make sure that people are in the best situation they possibly can be. So the more people we can touch, the better off everyone is.
Well, it's interesting. We always used to talk about in the industry of being a financial doctor where everyone showed up and you just went meeting to meeting to meeting. Today, you can do that.
Yeah.
Actually, if you have the right infrastructure behind you, which you do, you can go meeting to meeting and really impact lives and not spend that downtime doing the other stuff.
Makes getting porched a lot better too.
Yes. If someone doesn't show up, it's way better, right? I know. And for any of you listeners that don't know what getting porched means is, showing up at a client's house and they're not there. And that did happen a lot in the early days. And obviously you just hang up on your Zoom now. So, well, it's interesting. You said thank you on the technology, but you have been a big proponent of using, our CRM, our B2 tool to help you to navigate your book and find opportunities and talk about how you use that and what you do that makes you unique with that.
I have a reminder on Salesforce every single day to check my dashboards, because there's incredible opportunities to find there, whether it's annuities to be replaced, investments that need to be moved, a life insurance policy that I can do something better with. I don't honestly know what I would do without it at this point. Just even the reminders that I get that, hey, this policy has something happening with it in the next 90 days. Make sure you reach out to the client to let them know. It's a long ways from the old one card system that we used to use, and that yellow piece of paper on the note card that you'd pull and have to remember to update and say, wait, what was I trying to say with this note here? Now you could be much more thorough, but the platforms that we have make it very easy to find new business, especially as you do have more time in the business and you have built that client base. It makes it much more simple.
And for everyone that's listening, what Scott is talking about is the technology that's built here that helps alert you when there's an opportunity to put a client in a better situation through all product lines. And it helps him continue to scale and know to put his time in the right places and what to do. And on top of that, Scott, I think that, one of the analogies we use here at Barnum is it's a college campus. And, you could be this commuter and you go to school, you get a great degree, you go home and you say, it was awesome and I enjoyed it. Or you could be that kid that gets super involved and uses all the stuff on campus and said, I had the greatest experience ever. When I think of using the infrastructure here and not being the commuter, but being the person that's had a great experience, one of the things that pops in my mind is wholesaling. And we have product specialists here, and you use them really well in your practice. Can you talk about how that's helped you and what you do to make that effective for you?
Absolutely. I was having a conversation with JJ about an annuity right before I came here. I use them all the time. There's too much to know and remember and follow with all the changes that are happening on a regular basis for me to do, along with everything else that I have to do. So they're there to be that person to know all the changes. And when I have a question on anything, I know I can go to any of them and they're more than willing to help. And I know I'm going to get the right advice from them. So I don't know what I would do without them.
So it speeds up your learning curve and it keeps you, sharp on things that you don't have to study because you just, pick up the phone.
Absolutely.
It's pretty cool. Obviously, your life has changed a lot, having 2 children and a significant other at home. And like, how has that come into, versus being, by yourself in terms of balancing and trying to get the most out of your life and career?
Interesting you say that. One of the most impactful moments I've ever had was when, I can't even remember who it was. I wish I did. It was one of the first meetings I ever attended, but they gave a presentation and it was all about work-life balance. And it was talking about a stool. And they said, if you have a stool with only 3 legs and one of those legs breaks,
yep,
you're falling on your face. If you have an 8-legged stool and one of those legs breaks, well, now you still have stability.
Yep.
And I've always remembered that. And it's funny because I go back to when I was 22 and you said, hey, Scott, you're going to have 2 boys running around the house like crazy people. I might have questioned it. Now I don't know what I would do without it. And honestly, that has helped with the balance in my life and helped me understand that I need to spend time with the family and I need to be there for them. And almost going back to my childhood of watching my parents try everything they could to give myself and my sister the life that they felt we deserved and to make it as easy as we can. I've taken that and said, I want to do the exact same thing, but better, and make sure that my kid's life is going to be that much better. And I have a incredible support around me, no matter where you look, to help make sure that occurs.
It's exciting. And it is a big change, going from being single in this business to, having a family. But I think you've done it really, really well, and it's exciting. So what are some of the goals you have now going forward?
To build the team, keep growing, and make sure that, honestly, I want to be number 1 on the board, just like everyone else does. And I'm going to take the steps that need to happen to make it occur.
And have you thought through some of the challenges you're going to run into, or you think you're going to run into as you're putting this team together? Have you thought about that?
All the time. Yeah. Every day. What are the roadblocks? What's going to happen? Even coming up with the what ifs of random unknowns that I'm like, wait, what if this ridiculously implausible thing occurs? What would I do then? I think about that all the time to make sure that I'm ready as a leader to be able to keep the team on track and make sure that we can get to that next level.
It's exciting. So the last 2 questions I have for you is, one is, if you think of our audience, there's brand new people coming into the business, and then there's a ton of experienced advisors that are out there. So let's start with the new person. If you were brand new Scott Panza again today, what would you give yourself as advice to do that would have maybe sped up your thing or just made it a little less hard?
Honestly, I would say just keep working. It's a numbers game. The more people you talk to, the more likely you're to get that yes. And just always remember that and just have no fear with it. Someone says no to you, you're in the same exact position that you were in before you had that call, except now you have an answer. You have a no, and you can move on to the next person to find that yes. And that's really what it's all about, is just keeping your head down, doing your job, and working as hard as you can.
It's funny that someone showed me a book the other day, and you got this when you first started. It was called Red Letter Language by Howard Wright. Yeah. And I said, did I ever tell you the dog story about Howard? And I won't belabor this, but I was in the audience, and he said, what happens when the doorbell rings? Does anyone have a dog? And everyone raised their hand. He says, what's the dog do? Go to the door. Is it ever for him? And the answer is no. So he said, don't take it personal, right? So you just kind of said that in your own way. So it's kind of funny that just happened on Thursday. The next question is, fast forward today, top producer, you have a long way to go where you want to get to, but, top 1% of the industry now. What advice would you give that top producer that has kind of hit that ceiling of complexity now and then looking to break through? What would you say to them?
I'm going to steal something you said at one point. If
Please.
It's not broken, break it.
It's awesome.
I never understood that until fairly recently, where you have to be ahead of the curve. And just because something's working now doesn't mean it's going to always work moving forward. And like I said, actually being able to understand that and has helped me take the next step and helped me break out of my own comfort zone and be uncomfortable and try new things that I wouldn't have thought I would have done if you had asked me 5-10 years ago.
Yeah. And it's interesting because it's nice when you also have other people going through that at the same time, but there's no simple formula. There's no magic bullet and the model. And think about what you said earlier about the traveling part of the business, that if you would have stuck to that, you'd still not have embraced some of the technology and some of the benefits of today. Right. And I think you have to continually be open-minded to do that. You know, one thing I want to say to you, Scott, is that as I'm listening to you and everybody, I hope you're picking up on this. He really listened well, and he put a lot of stuff in the warehouse sometimes, but then he never forgot it when he started to see some things that came out. And that's what the name of the show is: Small Steps, Big Wins. And I think that you've been a great example of doing that and continuing to layer one great day after one great day. And I could literally say this, and you made it really clear. If you didn't get this, everybody, he's not taking days and weeks. He's taking each day to execute. And then when you do that after 5 years and 10 years, and all of a sudden you have great stuff. So any last words for the audience today, Scott?
Just thank you for having me here today and for having me at Barnum and giving me the opportunity to be here and create an incredible life for myself and my family. I can't imagine it any other way.
Well, thank you. And thanks for being on the show today. Make sure you guys follow us and give us good ratings on the show and share it, please. Thank you again, Scott.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you for listening to Small Steps, Big Wins. Please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
All opinions expressed by the program participants are solely their current opinions and do not reflect the opinions their respective parent companies or affiliates or the companies with which the program participants are affiliated. Investments or strategies mentioned in this program may not be suitable for you, and you should make your own independent decision regarding them. This material does not take into account your particular investment objectives, financial situation, or needs, and is not intended as recommendations appropriate for you. You should strongly consider seeking advice from your own investment advisor. Securities and investment advisory services offered through qualified registered representatives of MML Investor Services, LLC. Member SIPC, 6 Corporate Drive, Shelton, Connecticut, 06484, telephone number 203-513-6000.